Would a Redditor be the jerk if they told their wife their second baby should be conceived by surrogacy because after the first, they weren't as attracted to her? We're gonna get into that in a bit, but first, am I wrong for no longer cooking for wife after she drunkenly admitted she wished her male coworker would cook for her instead? My wife and I have been married for 7 years and together for 10. A couple years ago, my wife had a male coworker who used to cook for the office often. My wife used to always rave about his food and it admittedly made me insecure, also because he looked like a Greek model. I'd also started cooking for wife around that time. I was never a serious cook, but I decided to give it a shot. Prior to then, I only used to cook basic food, but I decided to try cooking complex meals. However, a lot of times it didn't come out great. My wife used to help me, but I never was serious about it. One night, my wife was drunk and we just had a beef Wellington I'd cooked. It was sort of a disaster and my wife and I were both laughing about it. However, my wife then drunkenly admitted that she wished her male coworker could cook for her every day. I didn't fully grasp what she was saying as I was really drunk, but my wife realized what she said and she apologized. I told her it was alright and that it was probably some attempt at a joke. However, the next day, I grasped what she was saying and I felt really deflated. My wife sensed it and apologized again, and after taking a day to think about it, I told my wife let's not make a big deal about it, but also, I was never going to cook for her ever again. My wife again apologized and almost started crying, but I told her it was all in the past and let's move on. It's been 2 years since then, and my wife and mine's relationship is stronger than ever. Over the past couple of years, I've also spent a lot of time taking cooking lessons from my sister, who's a really good cook. I learned that cooking just takes a lot of consistent practice, and you can't just learn it over the internet, you need to acquire the skill. And I can now confidently say I am a much better cook than I was a couple of years ago. I cook for friends and for my family or my wife's family when they come over. The food I'm most proud of, and which I got a lot of compliments on, is the Valencian paella I made when my wife's family came over for Christmas. However, in spite of the progress I've made, I can't find it in me to cook for my wife alone. I still remember the hurt and insecurity I felt a couple of years ago. My wife even stopped speaking and taking food from the coworker after that incident, and the coworker has even left the company since. But I still can't find it in me to cook a romantic dinner for my wife. My wife has asked me a few times, and she says she's willing to do anything to repent or take accountability. But I tell my wife I've already forgiven her a couple of years ago, it's just that I cannot mentally bring myself to ever cook for her. Am I wrong? So personally, I can't fault OP in the sense that I know if I were in OP's shoes, I would have that same insecurity too. Honestly, I think where OP's in the wrong is the fact that they're lying to themselves and their wife. Let's be real about it, OP saying, it's okay, it's in the past, but still having it bother them for years and years, it's not actually in the past. OP's just hoping that they can mentally ignore it while it still continues to bother them. Like, after that happened, how many times does OP look in their partner's eyes and think of that moment? Or lay down on the bed next to them and think of that moment? Like, is it really in the past? I completely understand why OP feels the way they do, but OP maybe is kind of the jerk here for refusing to resolve it not just for their partner but for themselves. Not the Mama58 commented, I think you're not giving your wife enough credit. She stopped eating what her fellow worker cooked. She's apologized and really wants that one close thing, enjoying an intimate meal you cooked just for her. You say you've forgiven her. No, my friend, you have not. You are still holding a grudge. I get that she hurt your feelings and made you feel insecure, but geezo, 2 years? And you'll cook for everybody and their mother and still won't for her? That's cold. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, am I the jerk for tidying up in the bathroom while my girlfriend was in the shower? Long story short, my, male 32, girlfriend, female 31, and I just moved into an apartment together a few months ago, and I've been slacking on the cleaning. She hasn't really said anything, but I've noticed her saying things under her breath or making some comment during dinner. I'm not a misogynist. I know men gotta clean and stuff too, I just never really did much of it. I mean, I cleaned, of course, just not like my neat freak girlfriend. Anyways, I decided to clean the house before she got home from the gym, but I hadn't finished by the time she got home. Mind you, when she came home and saw what I was doing, she was really happy. I got a big smooch and promise of some fun times after her shower, so naturally I wanted to hurry up and get it done. She hopped in the shower, but I hadn't finished the bathroom yet. Our bathroom is kind of big, so I figured I could sneak in while she was showering. Not to be a creep, the shower curtain is dark, you can't even see through it, to get the cleaning done. I do have a tendency to get distracted, so while I was bringing the stuff to quickly clean the floor, I left my phone playing the podcast I was listening to in the other room. Not thinking, I quickly mixed together some bleach and vinegar to get it cleaned fast. I know what you're thinking, and yes, I'm an idiot. I figured the vinegar would speed up the process, but I didn't even think about how bad it smelled. Well, after I mixed it, I quickly went out to grab my phone and then turn off the podcast when I hear my girlfriend scream. I run back to the bathroom, but the steam was literally burning my eyes. She had the shower so hot, and she comes out, fully naked mind you, yelling at me, calling me an idiot, everything. She dumped the cleaning stuff down the drain and closed the bathroom door, literally freaking out at me again. Again, she's butt naked and we're in the living room at this point with windows pointed at the courtyard. Long story short, she's on our patio crying and told me she's not mad at me, but she needs time to heal, and said that I should probably drive around for a bit. So now I'm sitting in my car, wondering what the heck I did to upset her so badly. Am I the jerk? I mean, she got home from the gym, she's in a shower, unwinding, she's in a good mood, she's expecting things to go well the rest of the night, and then OP stumbles in there, bombs them with hot bleach fumes while they're showering, is completely unaware of anything that's going on, so you're hopping out of the shower, furious and yelling. Like, how does OP not see what they did to upset them so badly? Muntjack Drowning commented, "Dude, you should have let her shower in peace." Also, if you're in the shower, do you want bleach fumes in there with you? Especially hot bleach fumes? Now add to the fact that you made a lethal gas concoction while she was in a hot shower, so the lethal gas is now in the heavy steam. It's not only in her lungs, but coating her entire body, eyeballs, everything, and she cannot get into the shower to wash it off because that's where the lethal gas is. You basically nearly murdered her. But you mentioned that she's naked in the living room with a courtyard facing windows. So what? She doesn't want to hear your BS excuses for nearly committing negligent homicide? You need to change your title to, "Am I the jerk for almost ending my girlfriend?" This next story is, am I the jerk for not giving my girlfriend space after I lost my temper? I, 20-year-old male, know I'm the jerk here, but I don't know what to do next. I've had anger issues for as long as I can remember. I grew up in a house where yelling, slamming doors, and breaking things was just how people handled frustration. I know that's not an excuse, but I never really learned how to deal with my emotions in a healthy way. My girlfriend, 19-year-old female, has always been patient with me. She's seen me lose my temper before. I've slammed doors, punched walls, and once threw my phone across the room during an argument. I always told myself it wasn't a big deal because I wasn't hurting anyone, just objects. But I think I finally pushed things too far. A few nights ago, we had plans to go out for dinner. Nothing big, just something we were both looking forward to. At the last minute, my boss asked me to stay late for overtime. I needed the money, so I said yes and texted her that I couldn't make it. When I got home, she was upset. She told me that she understood that I had to work, but she was frustrated because this wasn't the first time I had canceled on her. She said she felt like she was always coming second to everything else in my life. I was already exhausted, and instead of listening, I got defensive. I told her I was doing my best and that she needed to be more understanding. She kept talking, saying it wasn't just about me working late, it was about how I never even tried to reschedule or communicate better. I could feel myself getting angrier and angrier, and then I snapped. I grabbed a chair and threw it at the TV. The second I heard the screen crack, I realized how bad it was. I looked at her and she wasn't yelling or arguing anymore. She just stood there completely still. She wasn't mad, she was scared. She grabbed her bag and said, "I need some space," then she left. I tried calling and texting her, but she barely responds. She just said that she needs time to think. It's been 3 days now. I went to her place to apologize, but she wouldn't let me in. She told me she's trying to figure out if she can keep doing this. I told her I know I messed up, that I need help, and that I want to change. She just sighed and said, "This is exactly why I need space." I get why she's upset. I've never hurt her and I never would, but I can't deny that I made her feel unsafe. That's on me. I've been looking into anger management and therapy since it happened, but I don't know if that's enough to fix things. I don't want to lose her, but I also feel like if I keep reaching out, I'm proving her point by not giving her space. Am I the jerk for still trying to talk to her even though she asked for space? Unfortunately for OP, I don't think the internet is going to be too kind for them in this situation. I mean, it's just blatantly clear OP has some serious issues that they need to work with, and I think OP is going to find a countless number of people that say if they were experiencing that themselves, they probably would have ran for the hills a lot sooner than that. I can't lie and say that I've not been dumb enough in the past where I've been so worked up that I take it out on some inanimate object that I regret very quickly soon after. But maybe that's like once or twice in my life, and I've learned greatly from that. I can say that even in like social or like gaming side of things, like just the secondhand stress from being exposed to somebody who like gets so angry at video games that they're willing to like hit their controller on a table or something. Like I wouldn't want to even be around to have that possibility of that stress leaching into my life. Is only game. Intelligent Deal 2449 commented, "You're the jerk. If I were her, I would run for the hills. You scared the absolute crap out of her, and then you couldn't even have the decency to give her the space she requested. After all of that, if you showed up at my house after I asked you to leave me alone, it would just prove again that you can't be trusted, can't control yourself, and have no respect for boundaries. You just keep proving to be crap. Leave her be and go get help. Leave women alone until you can figure out how to control yourself." This next story is, my girlfriend, 33-year-old female, left me, 30-year-old male, after our 10-year relationship. I've been with my girlfriend for 10 years. We're both 30. We have an apartment together. We love each other. Sometimes she would complain that I didn't spend enough time with her, that we didn't have enough intimacy, even hooked up is good when I sleep with her, that I didn't show enough interest in her. But we loved each other and we spent a lot of good times together. We've shared so many wonderful moments. I went abroad for a month and she also spent 2 weeks in a training camp. I came back on Friday and she came back this morning. When she was abroad, we had a 4-hour time difference and she was training a lot. Training camp, we couldn't find time to talk. This frustrated me and I said some hurtful things to provoke a reaction. Despite my apologies, she took the opportunity to play my game and announced that she didn't want to talk to me for a week. I managed to get her on the phone, I kept pushing her, and she broke up with me, promising not to sleep with other guys, also telling me she had no interest and that she could talk when she returned. Her issue is that I haven't changed enough in 10 years and she doesn't believe I can change now. She ignored me mostly this week, and when she did talk to me, she was cold. I've never seen her like this. When she came back, I went to pick her up at the airport. I pulled out all the stops, a bouquet of flowers, coffee, she was tired, and a taxi ride home. At the apartment, I had several gifts planned, including letters on cards. We used to write love notes, and a piece of jewelry I got abroad. It's 2 half hearts with our names engraved. She felt pain as soon as she saw me. She didn't want me to come because she knew it would make things harder. We took the taxi home, and that's when I hit a wall. She was very serious, physically unwell but not crying, though we still touched each other's hand and thighs. Then when we got to the apartment, she told me she wanted to rebuild herself, that she felt trapped in a relationship that wasn't fulfilling her projects. That's when I broke down. I told her I understood and promised that I would change in all the areas she mentioned. She didn't believe me because after 10 years, why would I change now? She gave me a whole list of things that were hard for me to understand. We are soulmates, meaning we can reconnect. She even mentioned maybe in a year and a half. She needs time to rebuild. She's going to stay at a friend's place for an indefinite period, that I have little chance of getting her back. She gave me a 5% chance. Everything started to feel even harder. Still, she said she loves me and wants us to meet on Saturday for a check-in. She took my gifts with her, except the bouquet, which was too bulky, and seemed clearly upset. She acknowledged the effort in the apartment and the attentions. Later, a friend of mine came to see me. His wife had spoken to my ex-girlfriend on the phone. She explained that they had talked the day before her return home, where my ex-girlfriend told her the exact same reasons for what was happening. Where she suffers is that she feels guilty for making me suffer. She called herself a bench. Immediately, I called her. She answered right away in tears, which differs from when we were apart. Then, it was very hard to get in touch with her. I told her she didn't have to call herself that. I reiterated my intentions with her, but I don't want her pity. I canceled our Saturday meeting. I told her that we wouldn't meet again until she feels in her heart that she can project herself with me again. She agreed. She asked if she could check in with me daily to see how I'm doing. I refused because I see that as pity. I want her to think about our future, not about my well-being. So I imposed a rule on myself, even though it's really hard, not to talk to her and let her come back to me on her own. She's an amazing girl, extraordinary, kind, and adorable, with values that are very similar to mine. The hardest is yet to come because I have to get through this week while I'm consumed by this abyssal emptiness. My mind is clouded by all the mistakes I made despite the warnings. I don't think I'll be able to make it without contacting her at the end of the week to ask where she stands. Do you think that's a good situation? The worst part will come if she doesn't change her mind. She'll come sleep at the apartment for a while and then pick up her things. I'd really appreciate your thoughts on the situation, as it's making me suffer terribly. So I feel like the problem here is, and it's really none of our business, but that we don't really know what exactly it is that she feels is wrong about OP. What about OP does need to change for her to be happy here? I gotta say, something about this feels particularly off to me, but I'm kind of struggling to contextualize what it exactly is. In a way, it almost feels like OP's too reliant on this person being in their life to exist, but then at the same time, it's a 10-year relationship, so is it not valid to feel that way? Faithlessness Flat 514 commented, "Being willing to change only after she's decided to leave you says that you care when you're going to be unhappy, but didn't care enough to change when you knew that she was unhappy, even though changing is something you now say you're capable of. I think that's really hard to come back from. I might find it more heartbreaking than the breakup itself. This is anecdotal, but I think it's common for people, and especially women, to only leave when they've grieved the relationship and are done trying. I think she's genuinely sorry to hurt you and is trying to soften the blow, but a clean break would be better for both of you. Take care of yourself, heal, work on yourself, and show up to your next relationship willing to listen and make an effort when your partner communicates her unmet needs." Our next story is, "My wife is sad because I skipped her mom's first death anniversary to attend my sister's best friend's death anniversary. My wife and I have been married for 3 years and together for 7. Last year, my mother-in-law sadly passed away. My wife was very close with her mom, and it was a really sad time for all of us. I supported my wife the best I could. Every year for the past 8 years, I've also visited the grave of my sister's best friend Haley on her death anniversary. Haley, my sister, and I were a really close-knit trio growing up. Haley and I distanced as we entered high school, but my sister was still really close with Haley. When Haley passed away a few years ago, it was a shock for all of us, but especially for my sister, and shock is an understatement. She went into some kind of catatonic shock and she was actually admitted to the hospital. She luckily recovered after a couple of weeks. Ever since then, I've been visiting Haley's grave on her death anniversary with my sister. My sister requested me to come over to her place to support on Haley's first death anniversary, and we've just kept this tradition since then. My sister lives on the opposite end of the country, so every year, I fly over to my sister's place a day before Haley's death anniversary. I visit the grave with my sister and sit on the bench for a few hours, and then I stay over at her place for a few days. The issue is that Haley's death anniversary is a day before my mother-in-law's death anniversary. Last year, I obviously couldn't fly over to my sister's because my mother-in-law had just passed away. But this year, I did fly over, and I visited my mother-in-law's grave when I came back to town a few days later. However, before I flew over to my sister's, my wife and I had a few discussions on it, and my wife asked if I could fly back on the day of her mother's death anniversary. And I told my wife it would be too hectic, and also my sister needed my support during this time for a few days. My wife did agree to it, but ever since I came back home, she seems a bit sad and a bit cold to me. Is this because I chose to fly over to my sister's? Was I wrong in doing it? You know, in a way, I almost feel like this is a doomed if you do, doomed if you don't situation, but I kind of feel like it leans a little bit more towards your wife. I mean, as far as things go, it's been several years for your sister, and I know it's hard for them, but it's also hard for your wife, and it's only been a year for your wife. I don't really know if there's a graceful solution here, especially considering it kind of seems like in this story, it was kind of agreed upon in advance that OP would go to the sister. I'm just sorry that OP's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Dryad4802 commented, I understand that your sister had a really hard time and needed your support. but saying your sister needs support on the 8th anniversary of her best friend's death while disregarding the fact that your wife's mother passed only a year ago and she obviously needs your support is kind of weird. I would certainly not stay in a relationship like that. Had a couple of exes acting like idiots while I was going through some family losses, and honestly, nope. That's when you should step up, in my opinion. Our next story is, am I the jerk for scaring my sister out of ordering something with peanut butter at a restaurant? I, 16-year-old male, was told to take my sister, 6-year-old female, out for lunch. We went to a Vietnamese restaurant that my parents take her to all the time, and she wanted to order peanut butter noodles. Now, I'm allergic to peanuts, and while it's not so bad that I can't even be near anything with peanuts, I still hate seeing other people eating stuff with peanut butter because I used to love it until I developed allergies. I decided to tell her that if she got it, I would have an allergic reaction and might die. This freaked her out and she got something else instead. When we got home, my parents found out and got mad at me for lying to her and scaring her because apparently she told my parents that she was scared I would have died. I had to apologize for lying, and I'll probably have to take her back again to get peanut butter noodles. Am I the jerk? OP is definitely the jerk here. It's not fair. I'm sorry. Peanut butter is a great thing, and I'm sorry OP has to miss out, especially having known how nice it is. But in any situation where you go to the childhood, toddler mindset of, if I can't have it, I don't want to see anybody else having it, it's not okay, well, that's not okay. Pear Tickle commented, "You're the jerk. I'm an allergy sufferer myself. I do have to ask my friends and family to make some adjustments for my safety, but it is my responsibility to keep those requests to the absolute minimum. Do I sometimes wish I could enjoy the delectable food they're eating? Absolutely. What's more important is that I'm not the boy who cried wolf. If I ask someone to make an adjustment, it is because it's important. Lying about your allergy symptoms hurts every allergy sufferer. It makes it seem like our conditions aren't serious because there are people who are inconsistent in their needs. It's okay for your restrictions to escalate over time. That happens with allergies, just don't make up rules." This next story is, am I the jerk for not letting my daughter visit me in the US this summer? I, 29-year-old male, have a 7-year-old daughter who lives in Norway with her mother. We were never married, but we co-parent as best as we can from different countries. I lived in Norway for a few years with my grandparents, but after things didn't work out with her mom, I eventually moved back to the US for work. Since then, I visited a couple of times a year, pay child support, and we do regular video calls so I can stay involved in her life. Recently, her mom brought up the idea of our daughter coming to visit me in the US for the summer. She said our daughter has been asking about me more and wants to spend more time with me in person. I love the idea of having her here, but I told her mom I don't think it's the right time yet. I'm a firefighter, and my schedule is demanding long shifts, unpredictable calls, and not a lot of flexibility. While I could take some leave, I definitely can't take the whole summer off. If she came, she would have to spend a lot of time with a babysitter or in summer programs, which isn't what I want for her first long visit. On top of that, she's never been away from her mom for more than a few days, and the idea of her flying alone makes me uneasy even with airline assistance. Her mom thinks I'm making excuses and says I should figure it out since her daughter really wants this. She believes delaying it will only make it harder. But I feel like waiting another year or two until she's a little older and more independent would make the experience better for everyone. I want to be a good dad and spend more time with my daughter, but I also don't want to set her up for a stressful or disappointing experience. Am I the jerk for saying no this year? I'm gonna say yes because I feel like maybe it doesn't even have to be the whole summer. Maybe there is some compromise to shorten the duration. But even then, you should try to make it work somehow and see your kid that you're saying that you want to see. I just kind of loathe that mindset OP said where they say, if we just wait a year or two more, they'll be a little bit older and more independent. So is OP saying that they're willing to forego seeing their kid during those years when there's a valid opportunity to see them? Not only that, but how likely is it that in a year or two, OP will turn around and say, well, if we just wait another year or two, they'll be a little bit more older and more independent. When they're 9 years old, them being 9 is what makes it work? Or should we push it back to 11, 13? What's the end goal? Stacy JCC3 commented, you can get a nanny or a sitter. Someone has to watch your daughter while her mom works or has to do anything without her. If you're concerned with her flying alone, fly to her and fly back with her. Your daughter lives on another continent. She has the opportunity to be with you for months. If you don't want her, then be brave enough to say that. Natty07 commented, agreed. My husband's ex alienated his daughter a lot, and all I could think of was how much my husband would have given to be able to have his daughter stay with him for a summer. Our next story is, how do I get my female friends to stop talking about their dating troubles with me? I hate hearing it because dog, women are so privileged in this aspect it's not even funny. But I don't want to get into it with them saying how I feel, so I just try to get away. I do not want to hear about how a guy you're seeing isn't making enough, tall enough, or whatever else is the reason. Every time I try to excuse myself or get away, they just end up following me, texting me, or some crap happens, and I end up in that predicament all over again. I did have a history of trying to be friends with girls. I like to warm approach, building familiarity, but it never worked, and I stopped doing it because they went out with guys the total opposite. I'm thinking I'm still doing something unknowingly that makes them comfortable enough to do this, but crap, all I'm doing is being myself. Last few weeks I've been trying to distance myself from them, but days ago they texted me that they were drunk at a club and they needed a ride and the guys looked creepy there. I wanted to say no so badly, but I wouldn't have been able to sleep that whole night. So I picked them up and dropped them off individually, but this made it so much worse these past couple of days. Whatever it is, this crap is a specific type of heck. Sorry for the rant. So is OP kind of subtly self-reporting that they're only friends with these people because they just want to potentially hook up with them, date them? OP's out here saying, I try the warm approach, building familiarity, but then they turn around and date all the other guys, and now I can't stop being frustrated anytime they talk about their personal lives in a friendly way. No Comment 4619 commented, I say this with love, but grow a spine. If you don't want to hear their dating crap, tell them. If you don't want to go pick them up in the middle of the night, don't. It's not your job to get called Batman because someone looks creepy to them. Why are you doing these things if you don't want to do them and it just makes you miserable? Stand up for yourself. If you can't tell them directly, then you need to develop a dead-eyed, I don't give a freak stare, or literally ignore them when they're talking. That can do wonders. But seriously, just say you're not interested in hearing about their relationships. Our next story is, am I the jerk for suggesting we hire a surrogate for our second baby and telling my wife why when she freaked out and refused? I, 37-year-old male, have been married to Wendy, 34-year-old female, for 5 years, and we have a daughter who recently turned 1. We both agreed that we wanted to have at least 3 kids, and Wendy has been hinting about trying for a second for a while, but made it clear after our daughter's birthday. I honestly just haven't been attracted to her since she had our daughter and struggled to keep it up seeing her. At first it was fine, but once her belly grew a lot and she got stretch marks, I just lost my attraction. Don't get me wrong, I love her, I just don't think I can hook up with her anymore. Before she gave birth, I asked her to wear a shirt and just said it was so I could focus on her and not the baby. But now I don't have any way to excuse it anymore, and I've been trying to avoid telling her. Well, when she brought up us having another kid, I suggested we try surrogacy this time. We both make enough to live well and can afford it, so finances wouldn't be an issue. She freaked out and said no and asked why. I didn't want to tell her, but eventually I just blurted that I don't feel comfortable having hooked up with her because there's no attraction. I admitted everything and she was in tears asking if I really meant it. I said I was sorry, but I was, and I can't help not being attracted to stretch marks, and that's why I suggested surrogacy. She took it to mean that I don't love her at all and left for her mom's with our daughter. She refuses to come home and told everyone around us what happened. Her family hates me now, our friends won't talk to me, and my family even called me a tool and said I should have gotten therapy to deal with it, which I don't understand since therapy won't change how my attraction works. Was I the jerk? I think OP is the jerk because they just couldn't be upfront and honest about this, and it went on to a point where it hurt even more. I think it's pretty clear that this relationship is pretty over. I feel like you can say whatever you want about OP not being attracted to her anymore after having gone through pregnancy. You know, a lot of much more worthy people would probably still be there and unwavering, but OP themselves has said it, they're not attracted anymore. Unfortunately, that's going to cause an extreme explosion among them and their family and their relationships. But if OP isn't attracted to their wife anymore after their wife had their kid, then they aren't, and in my opinion, attraction is a pretty big part of the relationship. You can still love the person you see, but if that intimacy is dead, and all of a sudden you're like running for the hills and trying to like use a t-shirt and cover things up and try to find all these excuses and ways to power through it. What real relationship is there? Woodland Elf 90 commented, "My aunt's ex-husband made her wear a t-shirt after she gave birth because he couldn't stand looking at her while she looked like a beached whale." His words. He made her feel like crap for the exact reasons you're making your wife feel the same. She divorced him, his daughter won't talk to him anymore, and now he's a lonely, miserable guy who doesn't have anyone in his life. Congratulations, OP. That's your future. You shamed your wife for what? Because her body changed due to pregnancy? Belly? Stretch marks? Get the heck out of here, man. Have some freaking shame. That's the woman you vowed to stick by no matter what. Leave her alone and go get yourself an inflatable doll. That's what you need, a cold piece of plastic to match your cold, icy soul, and that won't get any of the offensive body changes that got you so worked up. You're the jerk. I hope she divorces your butt. You don't deserve to be a husband or a father. Our next story is, my fiance dumped me because I got into a discussion with his ex. He broke up with me today during lunch like it was a business meeting. This week, his ex got sick, and he wanted to bring their little daughter here on Sunday so the ex could rest. I asked him to wait until Tuesday because I was super tired from work. He got mad and we fought. On Monday, he decided to do all his ex's duties. He picked her up and dropped her off at school, cleaned the house, took care of her, and even took her to the doctor. He got home ridiculously late and always said he was tired when he got in. On Thursday, his youngest daughter stayed with his mom and his son went to study at a friend's place. He went to work as usual, and that day we went to lunch together. In the middle of lunch, his ex calls asking if he'd seen her car keys because she wanted to go to the store to buy ingredients for soup or something. And of course, he goes to check the car keychain and her key is right there. I don't know what went on in his head, but it was there. After the call ended, I felt like I had to put a stop to it. I told him I could take the keys and go with her to the store, and he agreed because he had an appointment after lunch. I was out of my mind trying to deal with it, but I was so ticked. When I got to her place, I went straight to her door and threw the keys at her. I said a bunch of things that I didn't think through, but I said what I was feeling. I hated how she always made him focus on her, how he always took care of her, how he was with her. I said her only redeeming quality was being a teen mom, and that she and her kids were ruining my fiance's life. Maybe I went too far because I told her she was such a trashy person that she couldn't even hold down a relationship or set a good example for her daughter. I don't know if she's a psychopath or something, but she didn't show any reaction. She said, "At least I'm not here for a year desperately trying to rewrite my fiance's story." She slammed the door in my face. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't come out. That night, my fiance didn't come home, not even in the morning to grab his stuff. I spent the night calling him and her, but neither of them answered. After dozens of calls, he called me today and asked me to meet him at the restaurant we always go to for lunch. "We don't work well together," he said. "I'd rather end our story here." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream, but I just asked him if he'd slept with her while we were together, and he said yes, last night. He told me he was willing to give me any answer I wanted, but if I went anywhere near her or her kids, I would regret it. Well, I guess I'm the villain in their beautiful love story. So I feel like there's pretty obvious fault on maybe both sides, maybe one side, I don't know. I mean, OP going to the ex's house and throwing the keys at them and berating them, I feel like it seems unnecessarily aggressive, right? Now, whether or not that was the catalyst that caused their fiance and their ex to get back together, I don't know, but it kind of seems like if it got to that point, there was kind of something brewing anyways. So if I'm trying to like pin the blame or call somebody the jerk in this story, it might just be like everybody sucks here. Potential ad 1397 commented, "You told the ex that their kids were ruining his life? The ex isn't wrong. You are trying to rewrite history. He would never say his kids are ruining his life. And P.S. the title is wrong. You didn't have a discussion. You straight up screamed at his ex." That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for wanting daughter and stepdaughter treated equally? I'll keep this short and sweet. When I met my darling husband, he already had a daughter by his ex. Since this is anonymous, I'll just be honest. I wasn't thrilled about it. I always pictured myself starting a family from scratch with someone. Anyways, we got married and I acted very accepting of the daughter, even though in my heart I felt the opposite. But I never let it show. I was always very kind to the girl and very accepting of her when she was in our home. Soon after the wedding, we got pregnant and I was overjoyed that my husband and I were finally starting our family. I think his ex has always been secretly jealous of me because only a few months after announcing our pregnancy, she made a huge spectacle out of announcing that she was engaged to a guy she had only been dating for like a year and a half. Fast forward several years, my husband and I have been raising our daughter as well as his daughter when she's scheduled to be with us. We try to keep things very fair for the girls. Obviously, since the daughter doesn't live with us full time, there are some differences. Like when she visits, she uses the guest room, but our daughter has a permanent room since this is actually her home. But other than that, everything is equal. Here's why I'm upset. Over the years, the ex's new husband has advanced in his career and is now very well off. It's obvious because of the cars they drive, their house, etc. Despite this, they never had kids of their own. Instead, they just shower her daughter with everything she could possibly want. She's not my daughter, so if she ends up spoiled, that's not my problem. My concern is that my own daughter is seeing this and is going to start feeling disappointed that my darling husband and I can't spoil her the same way. I've had these feelings for a while, but kept my mouth shut until a few months ago when it came to a head. For the daughter's birthday, they got her a brand new iPad. The next time she came to stay with us, they let her bring the iPad with her, even though they know darling husband and I can't afford to buy an iPad for our daughter. Basically rubbing it in our face. I blew up at my husband, and the result was the daughter was told she had to leave the iPad at home when she visits us. I thought that it couldn't get lower than that, but at that last custody handoff, the ex mentioned that for Christmas, she and her husband are surprising the daughter with an expensive family vacation to Florida. I put my foot down and said absolutely not. Unless they plan on taking our daughter too, they cannot go, period. My husband is usually the guy who does anything to avoid conflict, but he told me I'm being unreasonable. A few of my friends have said the same thing, but I don't see how. We have always taken her daughter on our family vacations, even though the trips we take are much more humble. Why is it any different? Even just typing this out makes me see red. I just want the girls to grow up being equals. How can I be wrong for that? Please, for everybody hearing this, do you guys agree with me when I say OP seems incredibly out of line? It's one thing if you have your own vacation to somewhere and you want to bring the stepdaughter along, sure. And it makes especially more sense for you to bring the stepdaughter along, considering your partner is the father of her. Your and his daughter that has no relation to the ex or the ex's partner is, I'm sorry, not going to be the end-all be-all on whether or not the three of them go on a Florida vacation together and leave her out. OP's biological kid is not entitled to anything from your partner's ex. And honestly, besides, OP has some serious issues to deal with if they feel like the one true merit of whether or not you can be a good parent in a kid's eyes is whether or not you have enough money to buy them everything they want. Dry C Sarcasm commented, "You're the jerk, a freaking massive one. Excuse me? You honestly think you have a right to tell someone else how they get to raise their kid? What vacations they take them? What gifts they can get them or anything like that? Newsflash, you don't. You're not taking her daughter on family vacations, you're taking your husband's daughter on family vacations. And really, you think you're raising your stepdaughter as an equal to your daughter? Because you aren't, you make it pretty dang clear how much less you consider the stepdaughter in this post. So I can only imagine how you actually treat her in person. Also, she got engaged after only dating for a year and a half. That's a perfectly freaking reasonable amount of time to be dating someone before getting engaged. You sound petty and jealous as freak, not the ex. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking if a button on a kiosk said something? So me and my wife were traveling and just got to the airport. Upon trying to check in, the app wouldn't work, so we had to physically go check in. No big deal. Every kiosk had no one working, so we went to a self-check-in kiosk. Almost none had the airline we were flying. She found one before I'd gotten up to it and just froze when she clicked the button. I asked, did it say airline we were flying? She immediately calls me a jerk and accuses me of calling her stupid for assuming she would click it if it didn't say the correct airline. I walked away and said that I was just trying to make sure that she didn't make a mistake and that I was simply just asking a question. She does this often where I ask a question and she takes it as an insult to her intelligence somehow. So, am I the jerk? I think it's pretty clear the devil's in the details here. Basically, OP I feel like served us enough that we need to know, saying that it seems like she does this all the time. I ask X question that basically insults somebody's basic level of intelligence and cognizance, and then they keep getting upset at me for asking. I'm just making sure. Like, just imagine you're in a relationship, and every time something like mildly goes wrong, your partner, without fail, manages to pipe in and ask, "Did you do the X most basic step that almost anybody can figure out how to do?" Like, after a while of that becoming a pattern, you're going to be pretty upset about it, right? Like, how dumb do you think I am? Jay Hebert commented, "You're the jerk. Stop and ask yourself, do you think your wife is stupid? She is clearly telling you this is a chronic pattern that offends her, and instead of listening to her, learning, and adjusting your behavior so your wife feels respected, you've just decided you're right because you think you're helping. Spoilers alert, you're not helping, you're just being a jerk." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling someone not to bring my name up during a conference? I work as an executive assistant and have supported the same 2 managers for 7 years. I have an agreement with them that basically permits me to work from home when possible. For example, if both are work from home, then I can work from home too. They can work from home because I do a lot of work that they're supposed to do, like approving bills. There are other executive assistants who work for other managers, and they are all to be in the office every day. There's a work policy that people in my position work in the office every day, but ultimately your managers have final say. That wasn't always the case. Executive assistants were once able to work from home once a week until they screwed up by being MIA and not getting work done. 8 months ago, all of us were told to be in the office every day. My manager said to keep doing what I'm doing because they don't have an issue. I guess some of the executive assistants found out that I work from home a couple of days a week. My manager said that the CEO was approached by a couple of executive assistants to reconsider the work from home policy. He said no, and especially if their managers also said no. They then asked why I got to work from home, and he said that's between me and my managers. I was ticked that they would bring up my name to the CEO. You don't do that. I barely know these executive assistants. We had an EA meeting and I had to say something. At the end of the meeting, the admin supervisor, our direct boss, but again, the managers have final say, so she goes with whatever the managers say, asked if anyone had anything to say. I said yes. I said it was brought to my attention that Kelly went to the CEO to ask about my work arrangement with my manager. It's no one's business what arrangements I have in place. I have arrangements in place because I actually do work and my managers like me. Mind your own business or I'll call you out. Kelly was embarrassed and denied it. I said the CEO told my manager, so you're lying. Today, the admin supervisor asked me if I would apologize for calling Kelly out. She went back to her cubicle in tears. I said, nope, I'm not apologizing because she did something wrong. I would never do what she did, and now she won't do it again. The interesting thing here is OP seems so staunchly firm in their belief that what they did is unequivocally the right thing. But I'm kind of a person that believes in such things as like unions, or arguing for better workers' rights, or the freedom to be able to discuss your salaries with your coworkers to understand, are we all being compensated fairly? In my opinion, if you wanted to pick somebody out to say that this person was in the wrong, I think it would very clearly be OP's manager. Kelly went to the CEO in confidence, knowing that a coworker on a comparable level was getting a much better preferential gig, regardless of whether or not you think that alone is a fair thing to have for OP. And then the CEO turns around and informs the manager, and the manager turns around and informs the person that was being directly referenced. I say, how is that a fair thing to Kelly? They're just trying to better their job and get equal footing with somebody that they see as an equal. Commander Ricky Blurgs commented, "You're the jerk. Sounds like your managers have put a lot of trust and confidence in you, and that's turned you into a bit of a monster. The whole thing is giving the vibes that you've developed a bit of an ego. Good thing you're not in the office much, because it doesn't sound like you're making many friends there." Salt Lavishness 7560 commented, "Oh, I think after the epically crap way that OP handled this, I'm willing to bet that she's gonna be heading back to the office. It'll be a warm welcome from all the other EAs after OP was so very clear to them about how much they all suck and their managers hate them. Oh, if we could all be more like OP, perfect and with such wonderful people skills." Our next story is, am I the jerk for eating a sandwich I thought nobody was going to have? My sister got a sandwich from Subway this morning and said it was for when she got back from work. When she got back from work, I thought she was gonna eat it, but she didn't touch it. After 45 minutes, I figured she wasn't gonna have it, and I was hungry, so I decided to eat it. Once I finished it, she came out and yelled at me because she was just about to eat it. I said I thought nobody was going to have it, so it was only fair. She demanded me to pay her back, and I said no because A, she had plenty of time to eat it, and B, food in the fridge is fair game, so it's her fault she didn't put it somewhere else or eat it when she said she was going to. Am I the jerk? I'm gonna be completely honest, I feel like I have some pretty vile things to say for anybody that asserts the notion of, it was in the fridge so it's fair game, trying to treat the fridge like some barren wasteland. Once you cross this threshold, anything goes. Once something enters those cold folding doors, you can't trust that you'll ever find it again. The fact that OP even had to post this is so dumb. They said they were gonna have it after work. 45 minutes after work, they hadn't even eaten it yet. Also, OP is especially the jerk because Subway these days is so dang expensive. She probably paid 12 plus bucks for that sub. OP should be reimbursing her. Accomplished Switch 7 commented, "You're the jerk, you knew what you were doing. You might have had an argument if she didn't eat it when she got home and then it was still in the fridge the next day and then she went to work again. But the fact she didn't come through the door and go directly to the fridge to eat her sandwich doesn't mean she didn't want it." Bratty Princess Angel commented, "Even if she didn't eat it until the next day, they wouldn't have an argument because the sister bought it for herself to eat. It's up to her when she wants to eat it." Our next story is 24-year-old male about to have a huge financial change. How would you react if I wanted to marry you but had a bold idea? I'm 24, from a middle-class background, and I've recently come across something that's going to change my life financially. Think enough income to earn tens of millions a year, maybe more, over time. It's overwhelming, and I'm still figuring out what it means. I don't care about big houses or fancy cars. I just want a simple, cozy life. There's this girl I can't stop thinking about. We were neighbors as toddlers, played together 15 years ago, but I haven't seen her since. She's 22, from a lower middle class background like mine, probably never dated anyone. She's humble, down to earth, and I want to track her down, reconnect, and marry her someday. She's the one I really want. Here's the tricky part. With this new financial freedom, I've got this thought in my head. I could meet anyone, and part of me wants to explore that, just not on my own. I'd want to stay with her, build a life together, but every once in a while, if she's okay with it, invite a willing celebrity for a threesome. It would be me and her together, only if she consents. I'm not trying to hurt or disrespect her, so women of r/ask Indian women, imagine you're her. You're 22, lower middle class, never dated, and I show up with this big life change wanting to marry you. Then I bring up this idea, staying committed but occasionally adding a celebrity to the mix. How would you react? Would it surprise you, freak you out, sound interesting? I'm just being honest and need to know how you'd feel, especially if you're from a similar background. I'm not trying to sound arrogant, just looking for real advice. This is a very unexpected story to stumble across. I can't say that I am at all in the mindset of anybody that would be, remotely relevant to what OP's looking for. Although, if somebody with tens of millions of dollars showed up and wants to sweep me off my feet, I feel like I'd have to at least think about it for a little bit. That said, I don't think it would really be conducive to the kind of life I truly want, even if it would be potentially very, very easy. And I think a lot of people would look at this guy and what he's posting and say, this guy is such a jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my wife to deal with my job? Me, male 33, has been together with my wife, female 26, for the last 5 years. I've worked my butt off to become a police officer from the Netherlands. We have a toddler and a newborn. My toddler's quite easy to deal with and doesn't require much effort to keep happy. Our newborn, however, can be a handful. Every time I have a night shift, she is being an absolute bench about it, and if I want to stay in bed for 2 hours longer than her, I'm called a self-centric, egotistical jerk for not dealing with our kids as a father should. Despite the fact that before my shift even starts, I would be awake for 13 hours, then having to do a night shift for 8 hours if I don't catch those couple of hours extra. I've told her to deal with it, and she goes ballistic on a rant about not sharing responsibilities equally and that she's the one having to deal with it all the time, despite the fact that she can just go to sleep whenever our newborn sleeps when I'm at work. Our toddler is asleep anyway, so the newborn is the only one she actually has to deal with. I finally reached a boiling point of being fed up with it and told her if she didn't like it, she can leave as she already knew what she signed on for, as I was already working my job before we even met, and told me that if I didn't quit or work less hours, she would leave me as she was sick of dealing with our kids alone during the night. And she wholeheartedly feels she's constantly alone, even though I have a very flexible schedule, and after a night shift I have a day off in between. Edit, since a lot of questions are about what the division of labor is, when I'm not working, I spend the majority of my day with the kids. Household-wise, I'm the only one that does groceries. I make sure the bills are paid on time and do everything administratively, and I help with menial chores like dishes and vacuuming, granted not every day. Appointments with a pediatrician are always with the two of us. No one goes to an appointment alone. When I'm off, she can leave the house to get away whenever she pleases, so she's not in a stuck environment. Am I the jerk for telling her to suck it up and deal with it and refusing to work less? I just kind of get the vibe in general that OP doesn't really appreciate her side of things and what she does. It doesn't really feel like there's any middle ground even beginning to be looked at here between these parents. And I don't know, I guess you can say OP is still consistent because they said, this is how it's gonna be, and if you don't want that, you were the one who said you would leave me if I didn't. So I guess OP's just gonna barrel down that road. Deadly Hausfrau commented, "You're the jerk, of course. Not only do you vastly overestimate how much chance she has for sleep, but you also are using your job as an excuse when it really isn't. My other half was active duty military when we had our twins. Once we passed the point where both of us had to get up every time, he took the lead at night because I was alone with the kids during the day. He's done that their whole lives." Our next story is, my girlfriend, 22-year-old female, snuck out of our bed to cuddle with her brother, 22-year-old male, on the couch in the middle of the night, and now she's mad that I'm mad? So I've been dating my girlfriend for about 6 months. She's amazing, beautiful, thoughtful, sweet, smart, etc. I really lucked out. She lives with her brother in kind of a crappy apartment, so we don't spend too much time there. We do hang out with her brother sometimes, and he's cool, a funny guy, and she really likes him, obviously. They're pretty touchy-feely, which I always thought was kind of weird, but then again they're twins and I don't have any siblings. So I figured I just didn't get it. I didn't put too much weight on it overall. Whatever. That is, until I spent the night at hers. We usually don't. She only has a full bed and I have a king size. And I woke up in the middle of the night and she wasn't next to me. I thought she went to the bathroom or something, but she was gone like half an hour. So finally, I got up and went into the living room, and she's in there with her brother's head on her lap, and she's like cuddling him and petting his hair. Of course, immediately I was like, what the freak? And they jumped up surprised. He seemed embarrassed and ran back to his bedroom without saying anything. She wasn't embarrassed though, she was mad. She dug into me immediately. I said I get they're twins, but she's supposed to be cuddling with me, not him, and it's completely inappropriate to have his head in her lap. She said he had a nightmare and she was comforting him, but like, he isn't 5 years old, he's a grown man. She said I would never understand and literally kicked me out of the house right then. It was like 3 in the morning. I've been texting her, but she says she needs space. I seriously feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Am I really out of line for thinking this is inappropriate and weird? OP's definitely the jerk here, right? It would be like one thing if they're like under the covers on top of each other in like their sleepwear or something, maybe. And even then, it would be hard for me to really definitively say like something weird is truly going on. I just don't buy that there was anything actually wrong with what they were doing going on there. And I don't know, I'm just willing to believe that whatever was going on was truly like a pure, innocent thing. I mean, you would want to give the benefit of the doubt between two siblings like that, right? Like, what's truly wrong with what they did? His head's in her lap, so what? It's not like they were spooning together. As Pervins commented, first of all, she didn't sneak out. She got out of bed without waking you in the middle of the night. It's the polite thing to do. You started yelling at 3 in the morning over your girlfriend comforting her brother that you know had a rough childhood together and implied they're incestuous just because it was in a way you're not familiar with. If anyone ever insinuated that I was into my brother like that, I would never see them again. Cuddling is not immediately romantic or sexual, it's just touching. Using someone's lap as a pillow isn't either. If you're not from a touchy family, fine, but that doesn't make it wrong. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister she's overreacting? Ages: me, 34-year-old female, sister, 32-year-old female, hubby, 38-year-old male, and 4 and 1-year-old female kids. Sister hates hubby and makes up BS reasons for me to leave him all the time. I think she's jealous because she's single, but she insists otherwise. Hubby doesn't like sister and I understand why. Hubby and I had a fight and things got a bit out of hand. He does have anger issues and I didn't diffuse the situation in time, which is my fault. Unfortunately, the 4-year-old saw, and while sister was babysitting, she told sister and sister confronted me later. She claims that the kids need to be out of the environment and it isn't healthy for any of us or whatever, and if I didn't, she would call CPS, which is an over-the-top threat over an argument with hubby. My marriage isn't her business and she shouldn't be involved in our fights, and I'm not going to be a single mother over a fight. I told her she's overreacting and that she needs to stay the freak out of my relationship with hubby because what we do is none of her concern. I kicked her out after arguing about it. My parents took her side now and are telling me the same crap she is. Am I the jerk? I don't know if we can really truly comment on whether or not OP is the jerk here without fully understanding what exactly the argument did look like. Like OP saying it got a bit out of hand. What does that actually look like? I feel like describing something as the argument got a bit out of hand could potentially cross over into something that, if the kid is exposed to it, it probably is going to traumatize them in some way. Realistically though, even if they did call CPS, I feel like CPS isn't going to do anything about it just because you and your partner had arguments, even if it was loud and screamy. I feel like you're gonna be hard-pressed for CPS to actually do something unless a clear line is being crossed, which I would feel is more on the physical side of things. M. Arabsky commented, "It depends what you mean when you say, and things got out of hand. It sounds like you're trying very hard to minimize something that potentially is very bad and actually would mean your sister is not overreacting. But you need to spell out in detail exactly what happened before anyone can say if your family is overreacting or not. For all we know, he pulled out a pew-pew and waved it around, in which case, no, your family would not be overreacting. It seems like there's a reason you're not telling us what happened." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting a guy included in our mom friend group? I, 35-year-old female, am a single mother to 2 kids, 5 and 3. Both my kids are in daycare, and over the years, I've built a solid friend group with a handful of other moms, and our kids regularly get together for playdates. The father of my kids is not in the picture at all, and my relationship with him is non-existent. This is 100% for the best, and I'm currently in therapy to deal with a lot of things that my ex did to me. This friend group has literally been a lifesaver for me at times. A few months ago, there were 2 new kids that started at our daycare center. They're similar in age to my kids and were placed in the same classes as them. I noticed that their dad was the only parent to ever pick up or drop off the kids. He would try to make small talk with me a few times, but I'm uncomfortable around strange men, so I would be polite, but not engage further than that. Our mom group has a group chat that we use to support each other and arrange playdates. A few weeks ago, one of the moms texted the group chat that she was adding this new dad to our group chat because he wanted to have his kids participate in playdates outside of daycare. I privately texted that other mom and told her that I don't feel comfortable with a man I don't know having my contact information, and told her that she should have consulted all of us before deciding on her own to add him to our group chat. I then texted the rest of the moms and told them that I want them to keep a separate group chat without the other dad because I don't know him and it makes me uncomfortable. This resulted in a lot of divided opinions, with about half of the moms agreeing to a separate chat and the other half saying that that would be too difficult to keep track of and that it's wrong to exclude another parent just because he's a man and that I'm being unreasonable. The mom I texted privately replied to me that she has talked with this dad numerous times and that he seems like a nice person and good parent, and that his kids shouldn't be excluded if they want to hang out with their friends outside of daycare. She told me that I'm being difficult and making this all harder than it needed to be. The other day when I picked up my kids, my 5-year-old was upset because a bunch of his friends were talking about a playdate that he wasn't invited to. I texted the moms about it, and they said that they were getting the kids together with the new dad and didn't invite my kids because of how I was acting. I told them it was rude to exclude my kids like that, and a couple of the moms told me to grow up because that's exactly what I was trying to do to this dad and his kids. I'm at a loss because these moms have been so supportive to me in the past, and as soon as this dad comes into the picture, it's like they pulled a 180 and don't seem to care at all. There are still other moms who agree with me, but now it's like our friend group has been divided by this. So I genuinely believe it's not that they don't care, it's not that they don't want to be supportive, it's that they don't want to be unsupportive to other people who just want their kids to have a good time. Parents who want their kids to be able to socialize with other kids that they consider friends. I completely understand why OP feels the way they do. They've had rough experiences with men. That still doesn't make it fair to try to dictate what this parent group can and can't do as far as playdates with kids. I mean, does OP even have to socialize with this guy? Who cares if that means they see your number? You can just block his number. What can he actually do? Bulbasaur Ranch commented, "Yeah, you're the jerk. You can't try and exclude him and then complain that it was turned around back to you. You get what you give. It's obviously a parents group and they just happen to all be women, thus you wrongly call it a moms group. He's looking out for his kids and wants to have social contacts for them. You try to bully your way into excluding him. He's done nothing to you. He doesn't deserve to be excluded because you have trauma with your ex. Your traumas are your own to deal with, not force others to accommodate your selfish wants. You are being unreasonable. You are being difficult. Now your kids are facing the repercussions of your actions." This next story is, am I overreacting for being offended that my parents called a little girl the cutest little girl they had ever seen? I think voice inflection matters a lot here. They said it very emphatically and with purpose, as if they meant every word sincerely. Context: at my brother's wedding, bride's 4-year-old niece was the flower girl. I was 26 at the time. I get it. It sounds like I'm jealous of a 4-year-old, and I'm not. She was an adorable little girl. I also understand that families sometimes kiss the keisters of their in-laws to establish or retain good family relations. The way they said it with such absolutism just rubbed me the wrong way. "She is the cutest little girl I have ever seen," they fawned over and over again. I'm their only daughter, so I felt some kind of way about it, just standing off to the side great. I'm just not a fan of speaking in absolutisms to begin with. I tend to take things very literally. I avoid saying things like, "That's the best wedding party I've ever been to," because it could easily be overheard by someone else whose wedding, birthday party, or retirement party I've attended. I don't know. It felt like a burn from my parents. Am I overreacting? Or do my own parents think I wasn't that cute? I mean, why didn't they say, "cutest kid I've ever seen"? Because that would contend with my brother. Why couldn't they have just said, "She's adorable, so cute. She did a great job in her role"? You can compliment without setting up a favoritism paradigm. Everybody who hears this story immediately must think that OP's overreacting here, right? Actually, you know what? No, let's not lie. We all have to join together and break the bad news to OP. Their parents just never thought OP was as cute as that 4-year-old flower girl was. I'm sure it must extend in other ways too. Surely they would choose her over you if they had a choice, right? Man, it's such a bummer that it had to be revealed that way. I mean, come on. It's just an adorable 4-year-old girl, and they just said they're the cutest thing I've ever seen. Just because OP doesn't work that way with their words doesn't mean that their parents were so absolute in firmly slotting OP in a tier below that 4-year-old flower girl. Aggravating Meat 4785 commented, "You're overreacting. This is a phrase people say all the time. You're taking it personal when it's quite clearly not. They didn't go, 'She's so much cuter than our daughter was.' You're exaggerating, and also, why do you as an adult need to compete with a 4-year-old? They clearly weren't thinking of you in comparison. 100% this is on you. Try some self-appreciation and self-love exercises to help you get validation from within." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to get to decide whether or not more Redditors are jerks or not, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.